Welcome to Risefuel, where underdogs rise, justice wins, and every story reminds you, no one stays powerless forever. If you love courtroom twists, neighborhood drama, and real feeling battles for what's right, you're in the right place. She splashed around like it was her personal resort and shouted at me, "If you don't like it, call the HOA." I stood there gripping the fence, trying to believe what I was seeing. This wasn't a community pool. This was my backyard, my private property, the only thing I'd worked overtime for years to build. Yet she floated on a giant pink flamingo, sunglasses on, sipping a drink like she owned the place. I walked closer, my voice low but sharp. "You need to get out. Now." She tilted her head and smirked. Actually, under HOA guidelines, all shared amenities must remain accessible. She tapped the side of her inflatable like she was reading some rulebook no one had ever heard of. I clenched my jaw, because I knew something she didn't. This land wasn't even under the HOA's control. But instead of throwing that card too early, I just let her dig her own hole. She had no idea the plan already forming in my head, and that the first move wasn't going to be mine. She climbed out of the pool dripping water everywhere, walked across my deck like it was a public park, and left a wet footprint trail straight to my sliding door. She didn't even knock, just tried the handle, bold as ever. "This belongs to the neighborhood," she said, glaring at me like I was trespassing on my own land. My fists tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing control would only give her the satisfaction. Instead, I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen, pretending to text. She smirked. "Go ahead, call whoever you want. HOA already knows I'm here." But what she didn't realize was that I had cameras running, inside and outside. Every word she spoke, every step she took, was being recorded. And the real kicker? I wasn't just some guy with a pool. I had a brother who worked with the county registrar. He had the original zoning maps and ownership papers, proof that the HOA had zero claim over my property. So while she strutted around like queen of the cul-de-sac, I was already setting the stage. Because when the time came to expose her, it wasn't going to be behind closed doors. It was going to be in front of everyone. The next morning, I woke to the sound of splashing again. Sure enough, she was back, this time with two friends, blasting music like it was some pool party. One of them even dragged a cooler across my lawn. I stepped outside, but before I could say a word, she pointed her finger at me like a sheriff. "Step back. You're interfering with HOA use of property. We can fine you for this." The arrogance in her voice almost made me laugh. Instead, I let my silence hang heavy, because I knew what was about to happen. Right on cue, a tow truck pulled up in front of my driveway, not for her car, but for mine. She had actually filed a complaint and ordered my own truck to be removed from my own land. The driver looked uneasy. "Sorry, man, just following orders. HOA called it in." My gut burned with rage, but I kept my cool, because this was the shocking injustice I needed. She wanted a fight, and I was giving her rope. As my truck rolled off my driveway, she smirked from the pool float. "Next time, learn the rules," she mocked. What she didn't know was that the cameras caught everything, including her staging the false call. And tonight, I was going to make sure everyone saw it. That evening, the HOA held their monthly meeting at the clubhouse, a perfect stage. I walked in quietly, carrying nothing but a USB drive in my pocket. Karen was already there, sitting at the front like she owned the board, whispering to her friends with that smug grin plastered on her face. The president cleared his throat, ready to move on with the agenda, when she raised her hand. "Before we begin," she said loudly, "I need to address the issue of a homeowner who has been disruptive, aggressive, and refusing to comply with HOA guidelines. He even tried to threaten me while I was lawfully using the community pool." All eyes turned toward me. I didn't flinch. Instead, I walked to the projector, plugged in my drive, and hit play. The room went silent. On the screen, Karen appeared in full color, kicking off her shoes, climbing into my pool, laughing with her friends about how she was going to teach me a lesson, and then calling the tow company while saying, "Make sure you get his truck, he'll lose it in front of everyone." Gasps filled the room. She froze, her mouth open but no words coming out. And then I said the one line I'd been saving, "That's not a community pool. That's my backyard. And this is trespassing caught in 4K. The president's face turned pale, and murmurs spread across the room. Karen shot up from her seat, stammering, "This is edited. He's lying. He can't even prove that's his property." She tried to snatch the remote, but I stepped forward and pulled a folder from my jacket. "Actually, I can." I laid the documents on the table, official zoning maps, property deeds, and a signed statement from the county registrar, my brother's stamp of authority right at the top. The president leaned in, his hands trembling as he flipped through the pages. Karen's voice cracked. "That can't be right, the HOA controls all pools." I leaned closer, lowering my voice just enough for the crowd to hear, "There's only one pool under HOA control, Karen. And it's 2 streets down. Everyone here knows it." Gasps turned into whispers, whispers into laughter. Her power started slipping right through her fingers. She tried one last desperate move, pointing at me with a shaky hand. "He assaulted me. He threatened me." But before she could spin another lie, I pulled out my phone and hit play again. Her own words filled the speakers, "Step back. You're interfering with HOA use of property. We can fine you for this." And then her laughter, calling the tow truck on me. The board president slammed his gavel. "Enough. This isn't just a violation. This is fraud, and impersonation." Karen's face went red, then white. She tried to storm out, but 2 real deputies were already standing at the back of the room. The board president nodded toward them. "She's yours." The room fell dead silent as they walked forward. Karen laughed nervously, trying to bluff her way through. "This is a mistake. You can't arrest me, I'm on the HOA board." One of the deputies pulled out a paper. "Not anymore. We've got multiple reports of trespassing, harassment, and filing a false police report. And thanks to this footage," he held up my USB drive. "We've got more than enough." They turned her around, and the clink of handcuffs echoed across the hall. Gasps and whispers rippled through the crowd, phones shot up recording, and her reign of fake power ended right there under the fluorescent lights of the HOA meeting. As she was escorted out, she shrieked, "You'll regret this. I own this neighborhood." But the look on her face said it all, she knew the game was over. I stood tall, finally breathing easy, because the trap I'd set had closed perfectly. Yet deep down, I knew this wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was about everyone like her who thought rules only applied to others. As the deputies led her out of the building, the room buzzed with shock and relief. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for months finally spoke up, sharing their own stories of her bullying, fines she invented, threats she made, and rules she twisted. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. I thought I was the only one she targeted. Another man shook my hand firmly. "You just did what we all wanted to, but couldn't." The HOA president cleared his throat and announced, effective immediately, "Karen is removed from the board. And as for your property, there will be no further interference. This board has no authority over your land." A wave of applause filled the room, but I only nodded. Justice wasn't about applause, it was about peace. When I got home later that night, my truck was already returned, parked neatly in the driveway. I stood by the pool, the water calm under the porch light, and finally allowed myself to smile. For weeks, it had been the symbol of conflict. Now it was mine again, untouched, unquestioned. My daughter came outside, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Dad, is the pool ours again?" she asked softly. I lifted her up and pointed to the water. "Ours and only ours," I said. She grinned, And in that moment, every sleepless night, every ounce of anger, every twist of Karen's game, it all felt worth it. I looked out across my land, the flag waving gently in the night breeze. And I thought to myself, I didn't fight this hard, work these hours, and build this life, just to let someone tell me I don't own what's mine. This time, justice wasn't just served, it was recorded, witnessed, and sealed. Karen's empire of fake authority had crumbled, and my family was safe. And I promised myself, no one would ever step into this pool uninvited again. Thanks for watching another RiseFuel original. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And remember, true power isn't in revenge, it's in rising above.